My name is Vangelis Nikias.
My name is Tony.
Hi.
Hello, Vangelis and Tony. My name is Joe. I'm in Scotland.
Hi, welcome, Joe. I'm Laurent. I'm one of the presenters along with Stuart, and I'm from the UK in the West Midlands.
Hello.
And it looks like we've got people from all over, from Los Angeles, from Canada. That's amazing. So welcome everybody. And I'm hoping that by now, everybody who might have been unassigned and might have wanted to join this room has joined. So this is a place where we can share a bit about our journey about Braille in higher education and in our professional lives. So what I thought we could do is I could maybe start by giving, just a little bit of an overview of my journey, and we could then continue sharing a little bit with each other in terms of our experiences. And we could exchange information. You might have some questions for me. We might end up having questions for each other. Let's see how the discussion develops. So my name is Laurent. I am a psychologist in private practice, and I live in the West Midlands in a little town called Solihull, just outside of Birmingham. I'm married to Nicola, and I have two very young kids, Zoe and Anna. They're 4 and 3. So Braille plays an important part in my professional as well as my personal life. We had mentioned earlier of being able to have those special moments with the kids, reading children's books. At the moment, we've got Beatrice Doesn't Want To as the favorite. Where Daddy knows the book so well by now that we can improvise the funny voices without having to to be too worried about missing a few dots. I was born in Mauritius, so grew up French speaking, but I don't sound very French because I grew up in South Africa. So age 3, my parents moved to South Africa to be able to get me to attend a special school for blind kids in South Africa in a little town, incidentally, called Worcester, where there's a striking parallel with the UK, with a very well-known school for the blind in Worcester. So I learned to read Braille probably at about age 6. In South Africa, we have a language called Afrikaans, which was also the main medium of instruction at the school I attended. So I learned to read Braille in Afrikaans as well as English, and also learned the grade 2 or contracted Braille systems for these two languages at about the same time. So I would consider myself to be well and truly a Braille native with, grade 1 Braille, as well as these two grade 2 Braille systems sort of hardwired into my brain from a very young age. Braille also enabled me before the time of speech technology on computers, becoming mature, to explore my French roots. So I started reading a few French books at a young age. It also enabled me to learn German, pick up a smattering of modern Greek, and also do a bit of Spanish and Esperanto during my school years. In terms of further education, and higher education, when I went to university, I became more familiar with electronic Braille. So my first exposure to that was using a device which some of you may remember called a Braille and Speak, where you have it's a rectangular box with 7 buttons, one for the space bar and 6 representing the Braille dots, but no actual Braille output. So all you had was an electronic voice sounding not quite as nice as the electronic voices we have nowadays, giving you your output, but the input at least was in Braille, and that enabled me to attend my lectures and take notes in quite a discreet way. Apart from the soft occasional burp from the machine if I thought that I'd exited the word processor and needed to get myself back in there. But yeah, at least it was mostly quite discreet. And I found that a better solution than recording all my lectures, because which student with a balanced lifestyle actually has the time to listen to a lecture twice? There are much more fun things to be doing at university. So I could take my notes and get on with revision, etc. afterwards. When I attended university in South Africa, again, there was a mixed medium of instruction. So it was both in English and Afrikaans. And the provision for materials being translated into Braille, or even just simply scanned electronically, was full of good intention, but not well resourced in terms of good policy backing and funding from the university itself. We were fortunate to have a charitable donation from quite a big trust, which provided the salary and some Braille equipment, like a Braille embosser, for somebody to scan materials and then have it printed into Braille. So, very often, due to a bit of a bottleneck with the transcription system, as well as lecturers not always being very, shall we say, proactive in terms of how early they compiled their lecture materials. My Braille materials were ready within an inch of the exams. So this led to me becoming very proficient at cramming, and led to the development of a work ethic which was a bit sort of feast and famine, so not that ideal. And the reality of that was that in terms of reading Braille, I find reading Braille to be much more engaging, but a little bit slower than using synthetic speech. So I tended to do quite a bit of cramming using synthetic speech, but then having Braille materials available more for reference, and maybe for articles in Afrikaans where the synthetic speech was not very good at delivering that language. So in terms of modern provision of Braille, my hope is that students will have the backing of their institutions to have that delivered in a much more timely way. Braille was nevertheless very important when it came to STEM subjects. So in my psychology studies, I had to do statistics, and having Braille there was really very important, in terms of actually getting into the numbers. In my professional life, I use Braille every day. So as a note-taking solution, I have used various devices. My preference nowadays is for a device that delivers Braille output as well as Braille input. And if it has the ability to read out documents in a synthetic voice, that's a good bonus. So when I'm working with a client, whether it's online or face-to-face, I'll have my note taker at hand and I'll be able to take notes. I'll be able to refer back to notes from previous sessions in quite a discreet way. Normally during session 1, there might be a little bit of curiosity as to what this device is, but I'm always happy to explain. These notes can then be uploaded to a computer. So my Braille note taker connects via USB to my computer, and I can simply upload the notes. And if I type quite carefully in grade 2 Braille, they translate very well into just a normal text file, which is readable on the computer. And I can then upload those notes if needed to client databases on the internet used by the various agencies for whom I might do some work. Braille is also very helpful when it comes to delivering presentations. So I, from time to time, conduct workshops, and I'll then have my slides on my Braille display and be able to read while I deliver my presentation. Braille is also an important part of my day-to-day life when it comes to communicating with clients. Being a bit of a one-man band, I do my own diary bookings, etc. Text messaging sometimes needs to happen with clients, and on my phone I can use Braille screen input, which is probably, in my view, for a proficient Brailleist, the quickest and most accurate way of typing on either an Android or an iPhone. So yeah, that tends to be a big time saver for me. Right, so that's a little bit more about my journey. But I'd be very interested to know a little bit more about what professions are represented in this room. So let me hand over, and if you'd like to ask me any questions, please feel free, or if you'd like to maybe tell us a little bit more about your journey, I would be very happy to hear.
Laurent, it's Stuart here. Sorry, came into the room slightly late when you were just starting, so apologies for that. I see a few raised hands, so if you're happy, I'll bring people in to make some comment.
Perfect.
And thank you for sharing your Braille learning journey with us. So we're going to start with Lena, and then we'll go to Fiona, and then we'll go to Vangelis. So Lena Cousy from, of course, the National Council of the Blind in Dublin.
Thank you.
Hi, Lena.
Hi, Stuart. Hi, Laurent.
Hi there.
Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation there, Laurent, on your experience in learning Braille. I'm Lena Cousy. I head up the Library Access Service at the National Council for the Blind of Ireland, NCBI. I had just one question for you, Laurent. You mentioned you were talking about note-taking during your course, and I'm just wondering what your experience of Braille-ready files for book material, how you've managed with that, or what your thoughts are on BRF files.
So BRF files, I'm going to give you a bit more of a theoretical answer. You know, for me, the main advantage of a BRF file would be that it may have gone through a bit more human translation into Braille. So especially if we're talking about English, there probably wouldn't be huge amounts in terms of an advantage. And I suppose you're talking about, you know, having books loaded onto a note taker or Braille reading device. So if you're talking about a BRF file that's being generated by translation software without any human intervention, uploaded onto a Braille display, you know, it would probably be quite similar to what you'd get from a smart Braille display doing the translation on board. And, you know, potentially then you also have the line lengths, etc., that need to be set up depending on which Braille display the person is using. My experience, and this might be, you know, this is a Sight and Sound co-hosted presentation. My experience is more with humanware devices, but the humanware devices that I've used have been, you know, very good at just taking on a text or Word file, or a Daisy book, and just rendering them quite well on the Braille display.
Thank you, Laurent. We promote Bookshare Ireland here in Ireland, and I know the RNIB have RNIB Bookshare as well. And one of the options for many of our clients in further and higher education is to have their book in BRF format. You can download it and then use that on various Braille displays. So it's something quite new. It's not been around for very long, but I think the future for books for further and higher education would be the digital route, because it's a quick turnaround for the production and quick production of a Braille book or a Braille document for a student in further and higher education. Would you be a fan of that? Would that be something that you would be endorsing down the line?
What I'm quite excited about is, you know, hopefully a move towards having a BRF standard which, like Daisy, might allow for easier navigation within the file. At the moment, I tend to prefer Daisy books because they allow for easier navigation using different levels within the book. So especially if you've got a long reference book, then that's much easier to manipulate. Otherwise, if you had a BRF file without that, then you'd need to have agreed strings of text in the book that you can know to search for in a consistent manner. So my understanding is that, you know, there are some rumors of the development of an eBRF standard that I think will make the BRF files much more useful. So then you'll have the advantage of potential human input into the translation, as well as navigation being much easier. But I think we've got people in this room. I've had a quick look through the participants who might be much more on the cutting edge of this than I am. And if we could maybe have a comment, I think we've got James here. I think Dave is also here. So if you guys have anything to add to this, I'd be very happy to hear your voices too.
Okay, Lena, thanks for your questions and comments. Thanks a million. Okay, I'm going to go to a couple of more raised hands. Fiona Gameson. So Fiona, you should be able to speak. I think we've unmuted you. Fiona, can you hear us?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi there, Fiona.
You can hear me, good. I was just going to say, I have similar experience to you, Laurent, in that I came to England. I did my first university degrees in New Zealand, where, unlike you, probably because we only had about 4 million people in the country at the time, they're now 5 million. There was actually a specific Braille transcription service, and I if I went to see my professors the year before, sort of the course I was doing, I actually managed to have almost all my books put into Braille for me by the beginning of my first term. And when I came to England, I won a scholarship to Oxford to do a doctorate in Old English literature. I was rather shocked to discover that it wasn't the same here, where I'd always been told Britain is brilliant. And I had to rely entirely on readers. I was very lucky in that I got married within about a year of coming to England to a fellow student, and his parents were in the Methodist Church, and they got all their members of the church to put books onto tape for me, which was fantastic. But I much would have preferred to have them in Braille. But all I was going to say is that it's a pity that Braille. Sorry, can you still hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
I can. Yes.
That Braille is such a, well, it takes a back seat, because particularly if you do languages, I did Greek and Latin at university, and Old English obviously, and I read French. And you know, getting those things, I have a very old-fashioned bit of equipment called an opticon, which I would swear by, which again is tactile, but it's not Braille. And I needed that, and I similarly I'm a lecturer at Durham University, well, a part-time lecturer at Durham University, and I've lectured at various other Oxford and Kent. So I have had to do a lot of marking, and I must admit I swear by my. I've got a open book system, and I use that for reading student essays, and of course now student essays are more often done as electronic format, which I can download, but still for language reading, having the books in Braille, just for the sheer spelling of names, if nothing else. And also, as I think it was, I can't remember if it was Peter or David, one of them said that you remember things better when you actually read them under your hand, and you can flick back to the bit you want rather than having to just remember it all orally. I mean, I've got a good oral memory, but it's nothing like reading something in Braille. So if more shall we say, if more money and the resources were put into providing books in Braille for students, I think it would be a great assistance. And I use electronic things. I love audiobooks. I have several of the Sight and Sound bits of technology. I have a Braille Sense. I have a Hable one to use with my iPod, but it's nothing like having a Braille book. So that's my comment.
Thanks, Fiona.
Yeah, thanks, Fiona, for sharing that bit of your journey. And for me, I can agree that, you know, having become a bit of an expert in cramming at university by necessity, the bits that feel like they really stuck were the bits that I did have the time to properly read and appreciate, and, you know, kind of nearly find the joy of learning in by actually reading it in Braille. Incidentally, and this is not exactly on topic for Braille, but a few years ago I was extremely curious about opticons. I never had the privilege of learning to use one because I missed that bus in terms of being a bit too young. But I bought one off eBay, which was going cheap, secondhand, and I'm still to face that massive learning curve if and when I find the time, and it will be interesting to see what that can bring. But I think it is, you know, a huge learning curve.
But if you don't want to learn and you want to sell it on, I'll buy it from you, because I would, whenever my opticon goes down, it's like having my hand chopped off. I use it so much. Everything from reading washing instructions on clothes, through to dictionary work, through to obviously mail, you know, all that kind of thing. It's absolutely, I just couldn't be without it.
Yeah. Well, I think you know, it sounds like a separate topic, but one might need to set up a little Opticon foundation.
I think you'd make a user group or something there.
Yeah, a little Opticon foundation to support Opticon users. But yeah. Great. So,
Laurent, I'm going to bring
yes.
in a couple more raised hands. So you mentioned James Bowden. He is in the room and his hand is raised. So it'd be always good to hear James' contributions in just a sec. Mairead O Mahony, Sarah Matthews, we have a couple of people, but I want to go to Vangelis first because Vangelis had hand up longest. So Vangelis, you should be able to unmute yourself, I think.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Good morning. First of all, thank you for a wonderful event. I got up very early in Canada to participate in this, and I find it very reassuring and very empowering. Now, I don't have any questions. I have some personal reflections about Braille. So I don't know if you want to give people an opportunity to ask questions, or if you want me to make some comments.
You want to make a few?
Yes.
Sorry, yeah, make a few. Do you want to make a few brief comments, and then we can come back to you if we've time as well at the end.
Sure. So I am a public servant in Canada, in Ottawa. I'm a policy analyst, and I use Braille every day in 3 languages: English, Greek, and French. And I do use all forms of writing Braille, even the slate and stylus still for some things. I also use refreshable Braille. My favorite one right now is Mantis. Braille has been very, very important in my life, including helping me learn English. And it's a very funny story because when I came to Canada to go to university, the CNIB at the time didn't have a program for helping blind immigrants to learn English. But after I learned a bit of English, I realized that they had a program to teach newly blinded people, adults, Braille. So I said, if you won't teach me English, will you teach me Braille? And they said, yes, of course. And of course, in the process of studying English Braille, I learned English too. A couple of quick points, and then I'll close. I worked as a representative of the Canadian government in the UN Convention for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And there are a number of references to Braille in the convention. And I am very happy that I was one of the many blind people who participated in the elaboration of the convention, who argued for Braille inclusion in the UN Convention. If you have seen the Canadian, if you have touched, I should say, the Canadian paper money, and if you haven't, you should come here and check it out. It's a wonderful country. I directed a project about 20 years ago, and we played on Braille, and we have included a feature on Canadian paper money, which, if you allow me, I will say makes the Canadian paper money the most accessible and most usable in the world. And my final point is that I belong to a grassroots blindness organization in Canada, and I have written a paper for them, which is going public today, around my experience with Braille. And in particular, I use the historical experience of Braille to address contemporary political issues. So if you want to see that paper, you can send me an email at vangelis.nikias@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to send you a link. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Vangelis, and thank you for, I was wondering how I was pronouncing your name. I didn't do it perfectly, so apologies for that.
Oh, no problem.
And thank you for getting up so early in Canada and coming to our event. That's really great to hear. We appreciate your attendance. Okay, so we mentioned James Bowden, who's in the room. So James, it's always great to see you. And you should be able to say hello to us, I think.
Hello, Stuart. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. I don't know quite how I've got such a reputation here, but I just wanted to come back on Laurent's rumor about the developing Braille standard. It certainly is developing. It's a project jointly coordinated by the American Printing House and the DAISY Consortium. There is a website. If you're interested in web links, it's daisy.org/activities/projects/eBraille. Perhaps the easiest way is just to go to the DAISY website, daisy.org, search for projects, and then search for eBraille. There's loads and loads of other stuff there as well, which might be of interest. The four main things which are advantages of the new format, or the new proposed format, it's still in development. Matt, think of the acronym GRIN. So first of all is graphics. It is not currently possible to have graphics as well as text in a BRF file. It will be possible in the new file format. And there are devices being developed which I understand can actually display both tactile graphics and Braille text on the same kind of display area, which is wonderful. R is for reflowing. So if you have a BRF file, currently it is normally set for a particular line length. And there are some Braille displays, which I shall not name, which reflow the text. And there are other Braille displays, which I will not name, which do not reflow the text. And if your Braille display is of a different length than what the BRF file is set at, then you get what I call long line, short line syndrome. So you get a line of text and a single word on the new line, which is very awkward to read, etc., etc. I is for internationalization, which means currently the way BRF files work is there's a thing called an encoding, which in the English-speaking world, at least, is the USA computer code. But if you're from a different country, like, say, Germany or France, then you will not be using that code. And all the computer characters used for the Braille dots are different. So the letters of the alphabet are the same, but to get dots 16 or to get dots 256, you use a different character in the actual Braille file. It's a bit complicated, but it means the file's technically unreadable, which is not good. And N is navigation, which is the one we've talked of. One of the big things about a BRF file is you cannot easily jump to the next heading, jump to the table, etc., etc. All the things we've kind of got used to nowadays with screen readers, with the quick navigation keys, H for heading, T for table, etc., etc., and Word documents, PDF files, web pages, etc. It is proposed that that will happen in Braille files as well. The other point I was going to make, which is wonderful to have all these things like BRF files automatically generated and so on, one of the big potential barriers, which is still not totally overcome, is getting the original source text, that is the print file, in an adequately marked up way. Now, this particularly affects mixed mode text. So we've talked about foreign languages, for example. That definitely does matter, that if you do not mark your text as French, Greek, or whatever, just write the characters, you will get the wrong Braille, because it'll still use the English translation rules, because the computer doesn't know it's French. So it's got to be marked up properly. Another one, of course, is math content. I'm sure several of us have seen for example, PDF files where all you get is the odd character, and all the bits that join up lines and have superscripts and so on have completely gone. So you all you get is XX2. And you think, well, what's that mean? So yes, adequately marking up the print original is a huge area of development at the moment.
Thanks, James. That's really great to get the update. Many thanks for that. I've just got a notification to say that the breakout rooms are going to close at 11:30. So we have about 9 minutes, and I think we'll get a minute from 11:30 to finish our conversation before we're all kicked back into the main room. Laurent, are you okay if I take some more contributions?
Yes, absolutely, Stuart. Please do.
So we have Mairead, and then we have Sarah. So Mairead, you should be able to unmute yourself and say hello to us.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Brilliant. Thanks. It's a great presentation. Again, I just wanted to echo the points of education, I suppose, like when I was in college as well. Like my school experience was very different because I was actually getting my school books when I was in Braille when my Leaving Cert was actually completed. So like some of them I had and some I didn't. So I think for me, it's just, while I love Braille and I love to use it as much as possible, wherever possible, it can be very hard to get the material when you need it. Now I was lucky, like when I was in college, because I had a PA who a main part of her job was transcribing my lecture notes into Braille using the Braille embosser, which was very useful because only for that really, because I just kind of find it much easier to learn physically reading something rather than through audio. And I suppose, again, my other point, I suppose, is like even books, I love to read, but unfortunately, at the moment, I'm stuck using Audible a lot of the time. And now it's a great service, don't get me wrong, but I'd love to physically read. But a lot of very new books that are out and up to date are very hard to get. You can't get them in Braille. Like the only way maybe you can get them in Braille is if you're lucky enough to have a Braille display like that supports ebooks or Bookshare or something like that. Now I have only recently just got one there in employment. So, you know, I'm just using that now at the moment, which is great. But like, if you're not in a position, if you're not in education or employment or whatever, trying to get access to material in Braille can be very difficult. And okay, yes, you could get them through a Braille display, such as a Braille sensor or whatever. But like, it's the affordability of that. There's not really much assistance grant wise out there, whatever, to get them off your own personal, you know, to get them yourself, like if when needed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that Braille displays, electronic Braille displays, you know, they're you know, every couple of years there's something new and interesting that comes out in terms of how affordable they become. And I think in the past, what would it be, 4 years, you know, with the development in Braille display technology, we've seen the prices being driven down a little bit, which I think is massively encouraging in terms of the availability of electronic Braille.
Yeah, I know. It's just to try and, you know, I suppose give everybody equal access to it. I suppose sometimes it's just hard to get the access to the Braille material.
Yeah,
I think there are ongoing developments in the Braille tech, I suppose, and how Braille displays are constructed and cells that are being used. And yeah, like it's slower than we'd all like, I think, but it is gradually moving in the right direction, I suppose.
Yeah.
So thanks, Mairead, for your contribution. We appreciate that, and thanks for coming along today.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have about 6 minutes left, and I know Sarah has her hand raised. So Sarah Matthews. Sarah, you should be able to unmute yourself and say hello to us. I think we have you, Sarah.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi there, Sarah.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. It was just a reflection, really. It's great to hear everybody's experiences and be here today. I only lost my sight just under 10 years ago, and I started learning Braille about a year after that, and I've just finished my first year of teaching Braille at my local adult education centre. And I just wanted to sort of reflect on the fact that Braille has really been instrumental in helping me to adjust to becoming blind in my 30s, and it was a very sudden thing, and it was very difficult to begin with, but now being in a position where I can teach others is just wonderful, and I'm really looking forward to the coming year and getting more people into our class and trying to sort of spread the word. And the difficulty that we're finding with our class is people coming to the class just incredibly worried that they're not going to be able to learn Braille and that Braille is going to be incredibly difficult for them. And just seeing people's reactions and spending a few months sort of starting on the code and then coming to class and saying that it's been a revelation and it's really been a game changer in their life is just wonderful. So it's just really wanted to mention that, really, just say what a wonderful thing Braille is, and trying to get it out to as many people as possible now in my local community. We have had to rebrand a little bit, I have to say, in my Braille class, because people are a bit worried about the difficulty of it. So we've sort of had to say that you're coming to a Braille class to talk about your Braille, so your sight loss journey, and learn a bit of Braille and have a cup of tea and a chat, and sort of try to make it as relaxed and welcoming as possible, really.
That sounds nice, because you have Braille
Yes.
learning and there's a social end to it as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that sounds like
absolutely.
amazing work that you guys are doing. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's inspiring stuff.
Thank you, Sarah. We appreciate that. Just a message came in on chat that I just didn't spot until now, so apologies to Robin Williams, who just says, good morning. Unfortunately, I'm not able to speak due to my location. I'm a statistician. Braille is a huge help to me when coding and reading mathematical content. I firmly believe I would have struggled at university when completing my PhD without Braille. So, very powerful comment as well, I think, there from the chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, Laurent, when you think about it, everyone who talks about Braille speaks so passionately, and everybody, in particular, people who've gone through the education system, always have a couple of stories, kind of scary stories. And, I remember when I went to college, there was a Braille embosser, but no one knew how to use it. And we had to try and kind of figure out how to use this thing and realize that actually this was going to be a really useful piece of equipment,
Yeah. I think my experience was that at university, I made sure that I very quickly learned the technology that I needed to make sure that if anything went wrong, I could fix it. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Become your local techie, become your university
Yes.
techie as well.
Yes, I pretty much did that.
Two
I think
minutes
somebody
with one
raised their
hand.
hand.
Yeah, we did. Margaret Kinsella. So Margaret, you should be able to speak to us, I think, if I've done that right.
Yes, hi, good morning, Stuart. And
Hi,
Laura.
Margaret.
And just to say an appreciative thank you. I am enjoying the higher education aspect, and I work for the Technological University here in Dublin. And, we actually have a universal design module in the spring, and I would love some input for all students to become a little bit more aware of 6 dots and 6 dots success. So thanks
Fantastic.
for joining, and talk again.
Thank you for coming along, Margaret. And if you need any help with what you're doing, get in touch with us.
Great, thanks a lot.
Okay, it is 11:30, and I think this room is going to close very soon. So thanks everyone for coming, and Laurent, obviously, thank you so much for hosting us.
Yes, and thanks to you, Stuart, and thanks everybody for some really, really great conversation.
So just for everyone who is here, you will automatically be moved back to the main room in a minute. We're going to then, I suppose, enter the final part of the conference with our panel discussion chaired by Roger Furman of UCAF. So sit tight, and we will be transported back.